welcome to Edge of Play's podcast number 5 today. We thought in this podcast would look at what football can learn from other sports. This kind of connected to our last podcast, which was about new rules coming in to play for the 2019-2020 season. So we thought we'd look at how other sports, that not just the rules, but the way they approach them, the way they're supported, ideas in the background, anything at all really. We think that'd be good in football, that could work. So quite speculative at times, but we'll see where that takes us. I'm joined as usual by James.
Hello.
And Monty.
How you doing, Jack? You alright?
We've not got a fixed kind of structure to how we're going to go through this. We've all just kind of come to it with some ideas from watching other sports, as fans of other sports really, and what we'd like to bring to it. So who would like to kick off on this one? Anyone got an idea I'd like to throw out there what football could learn from another sport?
I'll kick us off with a sport, if that's okay.
Go for it.
You guys will know that my childhood was mainly in motor racing before I got into football. So from the ages of 8 to 18, I did motor racing as a sport. So I'm obviously a huge fan of Formula 1. I love Formula 1. Whilst the season's not the most exciting at the moment, there have been a few flashpoints in Formula 1, especially around the steward inquiries that Formula 1 has. And I was thinking of linking this to football, and obviously we have the steward inquiries in Formula 1 when an incident happens in a race. And at the moment, a very popular subject in football is VAR, and how we do in-game decisions, or how we can assist the referees with in-game decisions. So it's just one I was going to throw at you. At the moment, the steward inquiries allow the race to happen. You can't stop a race. Obviously, in Formula 1, everyone stop while we make a decision. You can't do that. It's not the same as football. But the guys out there driving, and the stewards will review an incident, and then there will be a decision made, and that could be a 5-second stop-go penalty, or a stop-go penalty in the pit lane. It could be a deduction of places at the end of the race. It could be a fine, or imposing a drop of 10 places for the next Grand Prix after a race. And it was just whether that kind of thing would work in football, whether we could have, I know we have panels that can look in football for the diving, or we've tried to introduce panels that look in football for diving or retrospective punishment for players. But is this something that could actually be done whilst the game is going on?
Right, okay, so how would that work? You mean mid-game?
Yeah.
So how would that work? Because they got the VAR doing if it's a goal or a penalty or a red card, haven't they?
Yeah.
Would it be as well as that or instead of that?
I don't think you can you? Because for the big flashpoints like that, you have to. It has to be done. You can't just. They can't be playing for another 5 minutes and then to say stop, come back is a penalty. Here, it was more the case of how could it work with panels. Could you introduce something which said it's been that tackle 5 minutes ago has been reviewed. That player is going to be suspended for the next 3 games, but they still play on during that game.
That's interesting, but that's sort of like the retrospective panels for diving and where you can be done for violent conduct, I suppose, isn't it? A little bit like that. It's interesting that. How does that happen then? I imagine if you're driving in a Formula 1 race and you did something that was, whatever, you should have a penalty for it. Yeah. Aren't you then? But you're still influencing that race, aren't you? Still slowing someone down, or you're slowing someone down for 5 laps while you're still messing about in front of them or something.
Yeah. So the recent one was there were 2 guys fighting for the front at the front. One called Sebastian Vettel, who drives for Ferrari. Another called Lewis Hamilton, who drives for Mercedes. One went off the track, and as he came back on, impeded the other. They carried on. Vettel finished first, Hamilton finished second, but in the race they actually said he came back on unfairly, and they gave Sebastian Vettel a 5-second penalty at the end of the race to be applied at the end of the race. He hears it, obviously with 20 laps to go, and he's incensed. He's talking to the pit lane. You can hear that kind of thing going on, but it gives them a chance to. It gave him a chance to try and get 5 seconds away from Hamilton, which he couldn't do the end. But also other drivers are aware of what happens, and it kind of changes tactics mid-game.
Yeah, so in terms of being a ban that you might get in future, that probably doesn't need to be done within the 90 minutes, I suppose, because what's the rush kind of thing. Yeah. But yeah, if it was like someone spat at someone, the referee hasn't seen it, but this panel have picked up on it, and they've had to watch a load of replays, the game carries on. That person should have gone, but they didn't for whatever reason. So yeah, I suppose 20 minutes later, if the evidence is there, that panel could come and say, half-time referee, that person's going to have to go.
Yeah, imagine sin bin. Imagine if we bring sin bin into the professional game. First off, there's an incident, people review it, say at the start of the second half, that player's going to be sin bin for 15 minutes. 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
Because we've done sin bins before, haven't we? And they are getting used in the grassroots game. So Yeah, I mean, it could be like an extra help to the VAR, because the issue to VAR at the moment, to me, it seems, is the length of time we have to stop for.
Yeah.
I think there's a good idea in there, isn't there? But it stops the game. So maybe it'd be mainly discipline, I presume, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It's one of those, I suppose, where it's never going to be perfect, but would you rather have it better late than never?
Yeah.
I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where you could go, oh, well, that person should have been off the pitch 15 minutes ago, would have given us an advantage 15 minutes ago. But I suppose better late than never.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. I do like the fact that it's done in race, because it gives them the chance to adapt. If you tell someone at the end you've been docked 5 places or you've been docked 5 seconds, they might go the whole race thinking it's okay if I just stay 1 second ahead of them. If you tell them in race, they have a chance to say, right, I need to kick on here. And
although with football, I suppose the one thing you could look at is, I don't know why you wouldn't need to take that long for a decision, would you? In theory, there's so many cameras. A VAR referee really on any incident should be able to look at that 15-20 seconds and just go, that's my decision. Like the idea that when you're looking at something for a minute, well, if you've got to look at it for a minute, it's not that clear, is it?
No.
Really, for me, if there's that much doubt where you're waiting 90 seconds, 2 minutes before you've made your decision, trying to get the 5th replay in, you're like, well, it wasn't really that clear and obvious then, was it?
It's a good start, though. So we've got an addition to VAR there with Formula 1 now. Because we've got quite a lot of sports to look through, I'm going to throw one in there. But can we try and start in the UK popular sports here before Monty takes us over the Atlantic to America, because he's got some all sorts of stuff on America. He likes American things now. But one I thought would be good to start on, from my point of view, would be futsal, because futsal's so closely related to football. But from doing the course recently, it's got some brilliant ideas in it which could transfer across, and a lot of teams use futsal to develop their footballers. So I've written down a few. Kick-ins instead of throw-ins is an interesting one. They do that already with younger players in some areas, but you can imagine, I do think sometimes, I know, throw-ins are almost messy, aren't they? They're quite a messy part of the game.
Yeah, they are, yeah.
And they can to go against other things. Everything out, when else as an outfield player use their hands, it's kind of strange, isn't it? We throw it back in when it's football and all that stuff. Maybe that, but one I think like more is the time limit on set pieces. So you have a corner in futsal, you've got to take it within 4 seconds. Right. There's no messing about. If there's a free kick, it's not, fine. The referee might have to set a wall up. But from when he blows the whistle, 4 seconds, there's a lot less messing. If you don't take your set piece within 4 seconds, the other team get it. So there's a big rush to get from the kick-in's the same, put it down, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you're not taking it, other team get the kick. That would be good for the time wasting thing and the pace of the game. They also have a pass back limit where the keeper, if the keeper passes to you, you can't pass it straight back to him. I think it's got to leave the half or hit the opposition player before it goes back to him. That I'm not sure I'd like that, because that would kill all this sweeper keeper thing that's been built up, and we can't enjoy that. But anyway, and the last couple I've got on futsal, time is stopped for all stoppages. I'd love that. I'd love that. We've said it in other ones, haven't I? I've mentioned it in the new rules and stuff. Stop the watch for that. Someone's injured, clock stops. Ball goes out for a significant amount of time. It's in the stands, stop the clock. And they have a 5 foul limit as well in futsal, which, so that this wouldn't work. But imagine a different amount, 20, whatever. Or in a half, 10. Once you reach your foul limit, after that, every foul is a penalty. Now, I don't think it's going to happen now, but wow, would that be exciting?
Monty would never play again, would they?
I'm thinking of certain professional players who their careers would be in dire trouble,
So interesting ones there. What are your thoughts on the futsal ones then? Any of those transferable?
I think the throw-ins one, we couldn't... Basically, you'd be having corners from everywhere on the pitch, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
If you did kick-ins.
Yeah.
You would just... it would just be corners from different directions coming in. I don't know, I quite like throw-ins. It's just an extra element to the game. I think it'd be sad to see them go.
It is interesting. It adds a bit of variety in there. I suppose the one thing you would say is that you couldn't, if there was a time limit, then and you're doing kick-ins, can you get your centre halves up all the time? How long have you got to get your centre backs up the pitch?
I do love it. I do love it though, because the idea
and
of
then
it.
You take a short one.
How annoying is it that you probably take 30 seconds to take a corner during a game anyway?
Maybe that's a little bit long. That's pretty quick at the moment.
That is pretty quick at the moment. Maybe that's a bit long. But at the end of the game, especially when you're holding on to a lead and you know that they're going to take forever overtaking a corner, it's quite a nice idea to have something saying, right, if you don't take it quickly, they're going to have the chance to go and attack and get the goal.
Maybe I'd bang my drum that I always bang though and say, well, the referee can still sort that out now. He's still within his power to go, you're time wasting here, yellow card. He can make his decision still, can't he?
Yeah, but the different situations that the referee's in, isn't it? At one, there's no pressure to take a corner because you're in the middle of the game and the scores are level. At another, there is pressure because one team are 1 goal down and there's only 2 minutes left to play.
But that's fine then. If you took a minute over your corner in the 25th minute, then don't complain that someone else is taking a minute over their corner in the 93rd minute. If you're a strong referee, for me, you can stand up to that and go, listen lads, they're taking the same.
I'd love to see you justify that argument for Liverpool are 1 down with a minute to play.
I think one of the problems with the idea I'm liking at the pro game, it works in futsal because you're indoors, and the ball's not going. I'm just thinking of some of our games where the ball's gone 40 yards over in a bush, and the referee's going 1, 2, 3, 4. You've lost your corner.
It's on a motorway somewhere.
Yeah, you can play on now. It doesn't matter that their player's 40 yards away getting the ball.
I do like the pace of the game futsal though. I do like that idea. The foul of it would be hilarious, but yeah, some interesting ones there. And in futsal,
do you know what really got into my head in futsal? I was watching the England under-21s play, and I sent a video to my FA mentor, just a short little bit about them playing out from the back, and they were literally 10 yards within their own half, no pressure on the ball, and I sent him one saying, what stops the keeper coming out here like futsal when the keeper just comes out and plays as an outfield player?
Yeah.
And it's just so risky thinking about it. But my thought was split the centre-backs as wide as possible and let the keeper do that. In the middle, there's no pressure on them. But the keeper would be like 40 yards out of his goal, but it's still coming into my head.
Manuel Neuer.
Yes.
Okay. If it had gone well, everyone gone, wow, genius. It went wrong and it looked so bad. It looked so bad. It's like, what's he doing?
Well, I've seen, I can't think of the name of the team, but there's a team in Germany at the moment, and they're doing this thing where the centre-back just runs from centre-back into midfield and disrupts, like when the other team are trying to press them, instead of like taking up a position and making space, he sort of bombs straight into midfield to receive the ball. So someone's got to follow him, and it's quite chaotic, but some brave stuff.
Yeah.
I'm going to move us along because I've got so many sports to do. I mean, Monty, do you want to bring in yours? Is yours? Are you looking at a sermon here?
Well, I just think like with the thought was other sports and what we can learn from other sports in football, and so the major one for me is because it's a thing that's actually happened is the influence that the American sports are having now on the top level of the game. When you look at the American owners that have come in, and the American attitude towards data analysis. You look at big clubs that are now being successful, like Liverpool, like Spurs. There's a lot more as well across the continent who are now taking this on board, and sort of whether you can monitor everything that you can monitor by metrics, whether it be transfers, whether it be coaching. It's just a huge influence that's come into the game, and that's come from the American sports.
Funny you should mention Liverpool.
Do you know what? I know that you're trying to say it's because I'm not objective on this, but it's
total coincidence.
Massive.
But it is genuinely they're the ones who've probably gone all in on it more than anything. When you've got like the director of research at Liverpool, he's got a directorate in things like theoretical physics. They've got people from CERN who are building like statistical models of how the ball moves around the pitch and how you can get advantages from that. And I think a lot of that's come from the likes of basketball, baseball, American football, things like that. And I think one of the interesting things for our podcast is, even though we, as grassroots coaches, we don't have access to those sort of huge banks of data and, huge arrays of numbers, it's how that can affect our thinking. Because I think even at a grassroots level now, you look at the emergence of things like expected goals and chance quality. Even as a grassroots coach, you can be thinking, well, if the big clubs are looking at that, what are we doing about that? Because I think last season I was looking at that more, of what are the quality of the chances we're creating? Where are we shooting from? Things like that. And even there's quite a big focus on set pieces. I think a lot of the guys who've come into it from American sports look and go, you're not maximising these opportunities. They probably look at it as like in gridiron when they snap and everyone sort of runs their patterns and you've got blockers and runners. You watch a modern set piece now, it's almost like a gridiron snap where people are runners, people are blockers.
Yeah.
You've got your path that you're running and then you're meant to get the ball.
Is it Liverpool that have got the full-time throwing coach?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think Liverpool get a lot of the focus because they're a popular club and they're in the media a lot, but there's a lot of other clubs that have been doing this sort of thing. Like, if you look at in Norway, Midtjylland, and the guy who's involved with that also was sporting director or something at Brentford, and they did the same sort of thing. They look at metrics, so almost like the Moneyball approach of can we buy players that other people aren't appreciating, and where can we get these little advantages? I think with regards to set pieces, the guy, I think it's called Ted Knutson or something like that. He runs an account called StatsBomb, that's another really good podcast. If any of this interests you, I'd advise you to listen to that. It's good. And they said that set piece wise, you can add 10, 15 goals to a season through set pieces, and that's what they managed to do there. And that's, it's a huge amount of goals over the course of a season. I mean, it's like having a 15-goal striker.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the grassroots, we haven't got the facilities, the technological ability to get the depth, but we use it all the time. You think about it, we'll say, we win a lot of headers on the front post from that player, passing to that player, so we do it more. You might not have a quantitative way of showing it, or you might say we scored 3 goals, but this season we've regularly said, we're creating a load of chances doing this way, so we did more of that way, didn't we? And we created more chances. So I think we do use that, and Monty made a lot of matches there, mentioned Moneyball. If you haven't seen it, it's a fantastic film, isn't it? And it's based on a true story, and this idea, just pure analysis of data and looking at what a player can bring to a team that other people don't see. It's fantastic, isn't it? And is it Brentford? Am I right in thinking Brentford? Yeah. The chap there, what was it called?
I can't remember what the owner's called, but I think he comes out of sports betting as well. So these are people who they look at the whole game and they just think, what is the thing that other people aren't looking at?
Yeah.
Where can we get an advantage that other people aren't seeing? And that's obviously like where they see the set pieces and things like that, where they're going, this is an underappreciated side of the game. I think they come at it as well sometimes as not football men.
It wouldn't surprise me if they were from the betting industry, because obviously they would need to have the knowledge behind them to offer the best odds on someone scoring a set piece goal. So if someone's strong on that, they need to understand why they're strong on it and give less money out for I'm talking about an industry I don't really know very well, but do you know what I mean? It wouldn't surprise me that they're from that industry, because they need the knowledge behind them to say what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, the core belief behind it is what is being undervalued here. That's, that when they look at prices for things and they're saying, well, that's undervalued, so we can, we think that's more likely or less likely. They're looking at football and going, that hasn't been valued properly, and then on players, what are the the things that people aren't appreciating? That's where, and when we're talking about what can football learn, you can just see it sort of seeping into football now with, expected goals, non-penalty goals, just sort of terms that are just slowly becoming more common in the game. And that's the really basic stuff, like the stuff under the bonnet that they're doing that we don't really know about. There's some really sort of high-tech stuff going on that's quite interesting.
Do you remember the small visual I showed you at the start of last season when I documented our first, I think it was either 18, 20 goals for the reserves, and just where the ball came from and where the ball was scored.
Right.
Just for our first 20 goals. And it showed me that I think 15 of those were scored from in the box. And what that allowed me to do was, when we went into our shooting session, say if the players were taking shots from creative angles and distances, it allowed me to say, look, 15 of our 20 goals have come from this area. Here. Therefore, let's work on focusing. It's obviously working for us. Let's work on focusing that for this session.
Because you've got the confirmation bias as well of when you see a player score from 25 yards. If you see someone thunder a ball into the net from 25 yards, and you think, "Oh, that's brilliant!" It's the Andros Townsend principle of he's great at scoring goals like that. And you're not thinking of the 25 times where he's broken an attack down by having a shot and it's gone over the bar. Would you be better 25 times of trying to work a better quality chance?
Yeah.
And you, even on the grassroots level, you can take those principles and talk to your players about it and say, do you want to be shooting from that range? If you're good at it, maybe you do. Maybe you get, your player who's good at that, you let him do it. But do we all want to be shooting from that range, or do we want to try and work better quality chances?
I don't want to shoot from that range.
Nobody wants you to shoot from that range, James.
It's even the case with free kicks and stuff, isn't it, as well? Because remember the whole Roberto Carlos did that free kick?
Yeah.
Wow, he's amazing. How many times did he copy that? And how many times did he boot it? It went all over them. Ronaldo had his little way of doing it, which did have more success, but still, apart from with Beckham, who just seem to consistently put it in, how many of them are actually, consistently scoring? And the whole process building up, the way he stands, the way he approaches, oh, here we go again. But not many goals, you're right. And so what would create more goals? I mean, some people even doing like this, I know City do a lot of the short corners because they say, statistically, we're not going to score many long corners because of the makeup of our team. We're going to do it short because we're going to back ourselves to beat you in the final third.
Yeah.
So there's so much we could say on that, but would probably not do justice to other ideas. But staying in America, a few I've just written down. Where one is actually from football, MLS, but I'm pretty sure American football does this. You know, the draft picks. I do like that idea of the way the team that comes top gets the last pick, don't they, of the college players coming through. Yeah. And there's something kind of levelling playing field kind of vibe to that. And it links to another one of mine, which is the collegiate system over there in all sports. So it's the student athlete is really valued over there, and people go and there's thousands that go and watch the games, and they're the players for the future. And you compare that to our youth setup, where it's much more on the undercurrent. It just makes you think if you had an improved collegiate system in the game over here, and then you had this idea that they were into a draft and whoever came bottom of the table gets first pick. It's interesting idea to me, that. And then it links into wage caps as well, and I'm pretty sure they have homegrown rules as well in the MLS, and quite a strict wage cap which they're trying to stick to. And they'll have a few big names, but then the rest will be local players. I can see how, I know MLS is football, I'm not, but it's a different way of doing it than we've ever done over here. So are those any ways? And it kind of shoehorns me onto then to rugby as well, just this wage caps thing. So any thoughts on those guys, your draft picks, your wage caps, your collegiate student athlete?
I think the wage caps are trying to be handled by financial fair play, aren't they, with teams? Whether that's working or not, who knows, because teams are getting fined left, right and centre for breaking those rules. But I think that was the idea of bringing that in, is to try and put a cap on having the... Who were the NBA team that were like the All-Stars, and they just had all the best players into
Harlem Globetrotters,
to try and stop someone from doing that.
I think
Real Madrid are doing it at the moment. It seems Galacticos.
I think it's difficult, isn't it? Like you're saying there, Stokes, is you've now got the situation where teams are trying to pay for staff or pay for certain parts of the organisation from another part of the company, or it might not be. It might not even. You've got whole states involved now funding funding football clubs. So it's so hard that it requires top lawyers, top accountants, and the people who are going to try and break the rules are always going to be able to get better accountants and better lawyers.
It happens in grassroots though, doesn't it? Like we're in a league where you are not allowed contract players, but we know that some teams get around that by having bonuses or things like that for people. So it happens even at our level of football.
Yeah, I think it's hard. It's hard to get that done, isn't it? Especially. The US is an interesting one, isn't it? Because they're used to that system in all their sports. They're used to having that system where it feels totally alien to us, in a strange sort of way. Like America is the most capitalist society in the world, and then they've gone for this system where it's like we're all in it together as one as one big business enterprise, and we all look after each other and stuff. It's very strange.
It started to happen here because just from speaking to coaches on the course recently was the idea like local clubs to us, like Stockport County. And other clubs are doing BTEC sports, diplomas and stuff. So you go to college and you do your training, and then you do some education. So your academic side keeps going. So I think it is starting to build that, but it'll come via the professional clubs, not the colleges, won't it? The pro clubs saying, right, we'll put you through your thing at this school. So it won't quite be the same. I think the big clubs will just dominate it again, and United and City and Liverpool and all these will have loads of schools under their remit.
Do we know, just on the college system, because I love the fact that America gets so much support for the collegiate system over there, do we know what kind of contracts those lads are on? Because I'm just thinking, one of the pet peeves I have is obviously an 18-year-old comes through like a Hudson-Odoi or Rashford, and they're on mega bucks already. Is that the same over there in the American game, do we know?
So I mean, based just on the stuff I've seen on it, I think by that point, isn't that when they get the contract though at that age? 18. I presume the student athlete part is 16 to 18, but I'm thinking college. But no, you go to uni, don't you? And it must be 18 to 21. So I don't know how
they must go for a massive jump if they don't, from having nothing to having you 15 million a year contracts, and it's just crazy for this crazy world, isn't it? And then they've tried to introduce the under 23 teams to the
That's where you've got lower league clubs against youth teams from the big clubs.
Yes.
Yeah,
and they've tried to do that to get them, I think, a little bit more visibility for those teams and a little bit more support, which I think is a nice idea, but it's bummed, hasn't it, with
I think there's a lot of problems
nobody
with it.
turns up to watch those games. Even though you're having like your Liverpool under-23s are playing Cambridge, it's still only attracting 400 people to go down and watch it because they don't see it as a...
I think they resent it as well, some of the lower league clubs, that they've got these teams who've got everything, and now they're putting their youth team in against you.
Yeah.
It's almost a bit of a slap in the face to them, isn't it, sometimes? It's like that was one of the trophies that we can't win. When I say we, I'm talking the Premier Division teams and the people that follow him, and all of a sudden, a bit of that as well.
I think they weren't happy either. There were rules, weren't there, that you were only allowed to rotate a certain amount of players, so you were massively increasing the workload on these teams.
Right.
They were getting fined for putting youngsters in and things like that, I think. So don't know that much about it. There's probably fans of and followers of teams at that level who are listening to this and thinking, oh no, you've missed out this point, you've missed out that. But I think there were quite a lot of issues that they weren't pleased about.
I've got a few I'd like to mention to you guys on cricket. Well, this is a bit of a funny one. The power plays.
Yeah.
I can imagine where it's just a certain tournament or just for the sheer fun of watching it. Imagine like a power play where at certain points you either remove players or you have to have so many players in your own half or whatever. I can see that being hilarious. I don't think it should happen, but it just made me laugh the thought of it. You can it's Tottenham's power play. You're like, oh no, everyone in the box. But a more serious one, the decision reviews. We have those in VAR, but how they. In cricket, you can also do where your team review it. I do like the idea of that. The captain in each half has one review, and if it's so, the referee, the VAR say no, but a captain could review something and go, I want that reviewed.
Yeah.
And in each half, or whether it'd go hand in hand with VAR. I do like that idea. The players choose it. Because you watch in tennis too, they'll be fuming. I want a review. They review it, and they end up being wrong, and it takes all the anger out of it. They're like, okay. Right, so whether that's something, I don't know. And then my last thing with cricket, for my point, the variations, the 2020 game, the test game, the one-day game, they're so different. And there's no time to do this, but how much would we love to see our favourite players, the best players, in a five-a-side tournament? It'd be fascinating, wouldn't it? Barcelona's five-a-side, Liverpool's five-a-side team. It'd be absolutely brilliant. It was just a weekend here and there, seven-a-side versions of it.
Can we do a podcast on that? I would like that topic.
Has Eric Cantona still got his tanker in the middle of the ocean where Knight played 3-on-3?
Yeah. How good was that advert?
Brilliant.
Very good.
Anyone got any of the other ones they throw in there? I've got a few others on my list, but if you've got any other ones, do you want me just to keep going? You talk.
I was just going to say with the cricket one there, it was the idea of the review. I think that was there was a bit more momentum behind it probably before VAR came in, wasn't there? Now that VAR's in,
it's replaced it almost.
It's almost everything that's important is getting reviewed at all times in theory.
That's different in the cricket review and the Formula One, because you can hear that, and the rugby is that you can hear the people making the decisions, which you can't yet do with VAR.
Yeah.
So cricket, you can hear the guy saying, "Can I have that? Yep, I can see it's come off the bat." And then the fan watching it goes, right, yeah, I'm listening to him and I'm understanding now what he's saying. Football the same. If they could say, right, his foot's in an offside position there, and by the rule of the law that means he's offside, I think again that takes away the anger.
It would help, yeah, because even recent games I've watched, exactly that way. You're going, but how have they made that decision? And you're still annoyed. You're going, but that player was involved with play, for example, and they've decided they're not. And you'd like to hear an expert going, they're not involved with play, and at least you know, that could work, couldn't it?
It'd also be the added comedy element of, I think, was it Watson from Australia who constantly wasted reviews when he was out LBW? So he just kept reviewing it. He was wrong. He had to walk. He wasted one of the team's reviews. It'd be nice to see who that would be in football. He just constantly wasted the review on something that was obviously wrong.
I put down athletics because I really love watching athletics, the international anyway. And it just with that, as well as rules here, I love watching it for the fact that they're not got the massive paychecks out of it, and you see when they're doing it because they love their sport, and it's something about the way they train, the way they're coached, the way they perform, the way when they represent the country, they're in tears to represent their country. It means so much. I just don't know whether is it possible to have that with massive paychecks. There's just something I heard about in boxing recently when they said it's hard to keep doing the hill sprints when you're wearing a silk dressing gown. saying about losing your hunger when your money is that high. Is it still in you? I think the more money you throw at something, those rivals increase, don't they? I mean, athletics has got the Diamond League and stuff like that. There's more money on show, I suppose, and you do see some of those middle distance ones where they're fighting each other down the line. So but I just love their attitude.
I feel like there's been a little bit of that coming in though, especially the last few years. I think it's been quite refreshing where you look at some of the top level coaches like Guardiola, Pochettino, Klopp, and they've got that very sort of collegiate sort of. There's a lot of respect.
Yeah,
they don't tear each other down almost for the last 2 seasons. All you hear from them is how great the other teams are. There's a huge amount of respect there. Even when the Champions League final, you've got them congratulating each other and making jokes about it, and we'll go again next season, and we'll test each other and we'll push each other. And I think that's been quite nice. I think for the last few years, it feels like there's a more respectful coaching atmosphere over the last couple of seasons. It'll probably change.
Klopp's been a good
It'll probably change again, but I've quite liked that, the respect of the coaching, of the art, of the process.
Did you see the story with him and Sarri, where they were playing? It was 1-1, I think, between Chelsea and Liverpool, and Sarri said, Klopp looked over at me and he was smiling, and I was like, what are you smiling for? And Klopp said, are you not having fun? And he was like, yeah, I am. And they were both like, it's an intense game out on the pitch. It's 1-1, and he's got a big beaming smile on his face because he's just enjoying it.
I really like that, and I agree. And do you think that's kind of borne out to the coaches' union almost? They're having to get now because their jobs are so short term in many ways. How long has it been on where a Premier Manager just sacked within so many four defeats away from a defeat from losing your job? Well, I wonder whether there's a little bit of that where it's almost like there's no point in being at this level of stress. Let's have a laugh. We're in this coaches union together. I might get sacked. Klopp this year, people were ringing in, weren't they, getting sacked? I remember early in the season because they'd lost a game. No, they hadn't. Sorry, they hadn't lost a game. They had dropped points in somewhere. I remember hearing it, thinking, what? I would love you to sack him because I'm a United fan and he's doing my head in because he's so good. So yeah, maybe there is a bit of that, and it's nice to see, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think one of them I wanted to mention is going back to America slightly. It's very much like the futsal one. Just want to throw to you both because this is a practical idea one. I don't like it, but basketball, I don't like this idea that they have a time limit on attacks. There's a clock running once you get the ball. But again, you can imagine how entertaining that would be. The 20-second clock starts and they've got the ball. There'd be no just passing for the passing's sake. And another one on that, which again would be very entertaining. Half court rule, the rule, the rule once you go out your own half of basketball, you can't go back in there again. So the idea you could play forward and then play all the way back to your keeper would go away. You basically half the pitch size once you go into there. I don't like that a bit personally, but I could see it be very entertaining.
You start triggering ideas, don't you, of how you would coach that if those rules came in place. So obviously when you're talking about the amount of time you've got for attack, you just tell everyone to drop. If you've got time, but if you tell everyone to drop, do they get in that space quicker, and therefore have they got more time in the final third? And then for the half court one, as soon as you entered that half, you'd just be pressed, wouldn't you? Yeah. Everyone would be sat there waiting for you to enter the half.
Come on.
Yeah, exactly. You've lost half the space to turn out to.
The downside to that one, though, from that, and the reason I'm not a massive fan of basketball is just it's so orientated in the attacking team.
Yeah.
And so near every defence, they go to zonal, don't they? They sit around the keeper and say, come, because you've got to attack within a certain amount of time, you've got to shoot. And that'd be kind of a shame, wouldn't it, if it became so... attack that end, now you attack that end, now you attack that end. You get a lot of points, but the points become less important almost when it's 100 and something to 100. Do you know what I mean?
I think one of the great benefits of football is the amount of variation, isn't it? That you can be a team that attacks quick, you can be a team that attacks slow, you can be a team that wants the ball, you can be a team that doesn't want the ball.
Yeah.
We've done sessions before, haven't we, where you've got to improve counter-attacking. We've done grassroots sessions where you have to attack within so many passes or within so much time. And it does get frantic, doesn't it? You realise once you put that time pressure on people, their brains just seem to melt. But and they just start welling it.
That's good training then, because then when they go into the 85th minute and they know what kind of style they need to do, and hopefully they're good enough to make that switch.
Yeah,
I've got a couple from hockey for you here. Again, not a sport I'm a mad fan on, but self-taken free kicks was apparently brought in at some point. I'm not sure when. It's the idea that you just spot it and then you could pass it, or you can actually just dribble it. Around that'd be interesting. And then one I definitely quite like the idea is, the penalties. Have you seen what they do with them in hockey?
Yeah.
Where they just run from, is it around the halfway line? But it could be less than that.
Did it in ice hockey as well.
And you got 10 seconds to score within. It's certainly quite interesting. It'd be an interesting take away from the penalties, wouldn't it? Where the penalties now, with this new rule of the keeper having to be on the line, it's so in the attacker's favour. Seeing Ronaldo having to run up from the halfway would be fascinating, wouldn't it?
Didn't the MLS do those types of penalties years ago?
They tried it, didn't they?
Yeah.
I heard that they're not going to use VAR though on the keeper's foot thing.
That's right, they've changed their mind.
Basically, I think they've probably just looked at it and gone, every single penalty will have to be retaken. So once again, here's the rule. Oh, well, just do it sometimes or don't do it other times, and it's a bit fluffy, isn't it?
It's not been thought through, is it? That. My last one for me is on rugby. I've mentioned it already with the wage caps, and we've mentioned this before with dissent and all that kind of thing. The conduct between towards the ref and between the fans, I envy that in football. The fact that there can be a game where they're going at it and the fans can sit amongst each other. I know that's far deeper than just be nice to each other. It's part of that culture of that sport. I know that, but I envy it. It's just so sad when you see we can't sit with each other. We're sat here now. We've got an Aston Villa fan, Liverpool fan, a United fan, and we hate each other for the reason. No, we're all good friends, and we can totally disagree with each other, can't we? But we're not going to fight about it because I'd win. But it's just so sad, isn't it? I hate how tribal it gets. I hate it, and rugby seems to just not have that. So the conduct of that, the way they speak to the ref, massive 6'6" guy who'll been bulldozed into somebody, they're absolutely fuming, they're probably punched each other, and the referee will go, come here, and they just stand there like a Rottweiler puppy that's being taught, and they're panting, and they just listen, don't they? Even it's the last minute of the World Cup, they listen, no dissent. I envy that.
Bearing in mind though that their valve for getting rid of that aggression is punching each other in the face in a scrum.
Yes.
So they do have an outlet for that aggression that isn't in football.
Here's an interesting one I want to throw at you. The line-outs in rugby, the attacking team choose, don't they? The team with possession choose how many in the line-out. So if they put 6 in, you've got to put 6 in to mirror it. So I thought, wouldn't it be interesting one on corners, for example, or free kicks, if the attacking team say we're putting 6 in the box for this, you could say I'm putting 1 in the box for this. Imagine that. It's like, right, you go marking.
That would be amazing, a 1-on-1 corner,
wouldn't it?
Virgil van Dijk.
That would be amazing.
Van Dijk and Harry Maguire, bump.
That would be amazing. Or if you had 2 good ones, put 2 and 2 in the penalty. I love that idea.
It'd be interesting, wouldn't it?
I love that idea.
Right, well, we'll see if we can push that one then. So maybe they could throw it into a tournament and then take it out if it doesn't work.
We're getting more towards a footballing circus here, aren't we?
That'd be fun, wouldn't it? They're most of the ones I've thought of just from sitting there and writing away. But
can we do an edge of play session on that? I think that's a really good.
It might be a decent.
I think that's a really good practice to do. Start with 1-on-1s, then 2-on-2s, then 3-on-3s, and then open it up to give them the attacking team the choice. How many players do you want to put in there? Yeah,
because if you're playing against a team that've got a great big centre half, who's going to beat your main header of the ball. You say, right, no, we're going to flood the area. We're going to say this many, 8 or whatever. You could see it being interesting, couldn't you? But every corner would be right, wouldn't it?
The responsibility you'd have. It's great. It's brilliant.
You could even make it a decision-making thing where you've got your squad of 5 and you take turns in putting one up. So you go first, you put your man up, they get to choose who goes against it.
Yeah.
Next time you go, you get to choose who to put against it. That's interesting.
Imagine if it was at random as well, though. So imagine if you had one of your players who was amazing in the air, one of your players who wasn't a strong point, but then you could coach, alright, how do you jump with them, or how do you put them off, or how do you do all these kind of things, or how do you take advantage if that's your advantage? Love that idea.
Look at his eyes. He's definitely doing this session, isn't he?
Any more to add, folks? Any more to add? We've done loads of ideas there that we could enter into football. Monty, any more from your end?
Probably just to wrap it up a little bit, and is the idea of that football, whatever sport you're coaching, you can learn from any other sport. Just having that intellectual curiosity to see what someone else is doing in some other sport and how you can bring it in. The likes of Pep Guardiola with his water polo coach on his team, who was talking about penalties because he was the best penalty taker in the water polo team, and I can't tell you how to take a penalty, but he can. just the idea that, like, with a lot of things like fitness and psychology, things like that, there's so much to learn from other sports. With so many different sports pushing barriers in different ways, you can always find new things, can't you? And learn things that you can apply, even at a grassroots level. There's things you can apply.
Yeah,
that's what I love with coaching too, because we're primarily football coaches. We've coached other sports as well. It's when you pick the brains of someone else, speaking to Hutch, for example, athletics, and his take on how we should prepare the lads in pre-season. It's interesting. We wouldn't have done it that way, but he did it that way, and it worked, didn't it? It did the job. It made us all sick. But yeah, I think that's a lovely idea, isn't it? And that's, I mean, this is going to plug Edge of Play, because that's what me and Stokesy want to do with Edge of Play. We go beyond football coaches working together. But I love the idea that somehow a swim coach could be giving you information that would help a player recover from a football injury, because you go, oh no, you try this, we do this with the swimmers. Oh, okay, that's interesting. You can see how that would really, really throw out there so many new ideas.
Yeah. Do you remember when we did the boxing session as well?
Yeah.
And it was all around the short, sharp bursts, because boxing's done in 3-minute rounds.
Yeah.
But again, in football, that's going to help you if you've got a flashpoint in a game and you need that.
Now you can punch him.
We need that good uppercut.
No, but you need that. But you need that burst of energy and to be able to recover, and then go burst of energy again and recover, and they can bring that into it.
Right, well, all sorts there. We'd again welcome you guys getting in touch if you heard this and you like ideas, you don't like ideas, or you have any other ideas that football can learn from other sports. Let us know, get in touch. We've got many ways you can access these podcasts: on Podbean, via iTunes. You can go on our forum page, you can go on our website. We'll share it on social media as well. If you're enjoying them, share them for us, like them, subscribe, and push them out there to other people. And we hope to get the conversation going with you all, and we look forward to coming back to you very soon with podcast number 6. So thank you very much.
Cheers, guys. Enjoyed that.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Goodbye.